I'm Ava Rios, 33, and I built my life from nothing into a career as an Air Force officer. For years, I supported my family, covered bills, sent money home, showed up for them in every way that counted. But when I came back after 5 years on a classified assignment and they treated me like a criminal instead of a daughter, something in me shifted. Have you ever given everything to someone who repaid you with dismissal or disrespect? If you have, share your story in the comments. Trust me, you're not the only one. Before I dive into what happened, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to draw a hard line after being underestimated or mistreated, hit like and subscribe for more real stories about boundaries and self-respect. Because what unfolded next even I didn't see coming. I sat in the passenger seat of my mom's old Corolla, hands folded in my lap, watching the Pennsylvania countryside blur past the window. I was 17, and I'd just signed the papers that would change everything. Air Force ROTC scholarship. Full ride. For years of college, then a commission as a second lieutenant. My mom kept glancing at me from the driver's seat, her fingers tight on the wheel. "You're sure about this?" she asked for the third time that morning. I nodded. "I'm sure." She didn't say anything else, but I could see the tension in her jaw. My family didn't understand the military. They saw it as something other people did, people who didn't have better options. But I'd watched my mom work double shifts at the diner for years, watched the bills pile up on the kitchen counter, watched my younger sister Maya grow up thinking that struggling was just how life worked. The scholarship wasn't just about college. It was about breaking a cycle. Maya was 13 then, all braces and attitude. When I told her about the ROTC program, she rolled her eyes. "So you're going to be, like, a soldier?" "Officer," I corrected. "And Air Force, not Army." "Whatever. Sounds boring." I didn't expect her to understand. I just needed her to be okay. College passed in a structured blur. I studied aerospace engineering, ran every morning at 0500 hours, and learned to press my uniform until the creases could cut paper. My classmates partied on weekends. I sent money home. My mom's transmission died junior year. I covered it. Maya needed a laptop for community college applications. I handled it. Every paycheck from my part-time job at the campus library got split, half for me, half for them. I commissioned at 22, second lieutenant bars gleaming on my shoulders. My mom came to the ceremony. Maya didn't. She had a shift at the mall. My mom took pictures, told me she was proud, but there was something distant in her eyes. Like she was watching me walk into a world she couldn't follow me into. The first few years in the Air Force taught me more about myself than 4 years of college ever did. I worked logistics initially, managing supply chains for deployments. It wasn't glamorous. I spent 14-hour days in warehouses and offices, learning how to move mountains of equipment across continents. But I was good at it. My efficiency ratings stayed high. I made first lieutenant at 24, captain at 28. The promotions felt like validations, proof that I'd chosen correctly. I kept sending money home. When my mom needed help with medical copays, I sent a check. When Maya's community college tuition came due, I covered the difference financial aid didn't. I told myself I was building something, not just a career, but a foundation for all of us. I thought they saw it that way too. Then I got the call. I was 31, a captain with 7 years of active service. My commander called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. There was someone else there, a man in civilian clothes with the kind of posture that screamed military regardless of what he wore. "Captain Rios," my commander said. "This is Mr. Chin. He'd like to speak with you about an opportunity." I sat. Mr. Chin didn't waste time. "We've been reviewing your record," he said. "Your efficiency ratings, your security clearance level, your psychological evaluations. You've been flagged as a candidate for a specialized program. I can't tell you the name of it. I can't tell you where you'd be going or what you'd be doing. What I can tell you is that it would require a voluntary removal from public life for an extended period. No contact with family except through official channels. No phone calls. No visits. If you're selected and you accept, you disappear." My throat went dry. "For how long?" "That depends on the assignment. Could be 2 years. Could be 5. Could be longer." I thought about my mom. About Maya. About the life I'd built, the careful balance of duty and family I'd maintained. What happens if I say no? Nothing. Your career continues normally. This conversation never happened. He leaned forward. But Captain Rios, if you say yes and you're selected, you'll be part of something that matters. Something that saves lives. I can promise you that. I took 3 days to decide. I called my mom, kept it vague. There's a special assignment opportunity. I might be gone for a while. Longer than usual. How long? I don't know yet. But I'll stay in touch when I can. There was a pause. You're always leaving, Ava. I know. But I'll come back. I always do. I accepted the assignment. The selection process took 6 months, interviews, evaluations, scenario training that pushed me harder than anything I'd experienced. They tested my ability to adapt, to operate independently, to make decisions under impossible pressure. I passed. They promoted me to major at 33, 2 years ahead of the normal timeline. Then they made me sign papers that essentially erased me from the normal world. My final night before deployment, I had dinner with my mom and Maya. Maya's boyfriend Dylan was there, a guy with strong opinions about everything and experience with nothing. He spent most of the meal talking about how the military-industrial complex was ruining America. I didn't engage. So where are you going? Maya asked. I can't say. Can't or won't. Can't. She exchanged a look with Dylan. Right. Super secret spy stuff. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I set down my fork. It's something I need to do. And I need you both to trust that I'll be in touch when I can. My mom reached across the table, squeezed my hand. We trust you, honey. But I saw the doubt in Maya's eyes. The resentment. I'd been the responsible one for so long that she'd started to see it as a character flaw rather than a virtue. She wanted a sister who stayed home, who was present, who didn't keep choosing duty over family. I wanted to be that person sometimes. But I'd also learned that wanting something didn't make it possible. I left 2 days later. The last message I sent from my personal phone was simple, love you both. I'll call when I can. Then I powered it down, handed it to a logistics officer, and walked onto a transport plane headed somewhere I couldn't name, for a mission I couldn't describe, for a duration I couldn't predict. I thought I'd be gone 2 years, maybe 3. I was gone for 5. The silence started gradually, then became absolute. For the first few months, my family received automated updates. Captain Rios is safe and performing her assigned duties. Communication remains restricted. The messages came from an official Air Force email address, sterile and brief. My mom forwarded them to Maya. Maya replied with one word, okay. I didn't see those exchanges until much later. At the time, I was somewhere in Eastern Europe, learning a different kind of warfare. The program wasn't what I'd expected. I wasn't sitting in an office managing logistics. I was in the field, attached to joint task forces that operated in the gaps between official military operations and intelligence work. My job title didn't exist on any public roster. My missions didn't appear in any briefings. I moved between countries using passports with different names, coordinated with agencies that didn't officially cooperate, and made decisions that would never be reviewed by anyone outside a classified vault. It was everything I'd trained for and nothing I'd prepared for emotionally. I learned to sleep 3 hours a night. I learned to read situations in multiple languages. I learned that leadership under pressure meant staying calm while everything around you disintegrated. I watched people risk everything for causes that would never make the news, and I did the same. 6 months became a year. The automated messages to my family continued, but less frequently. Every 3 months instead of monthly. My mom's replies, forwarded through official channels, became shorter. Hope you're safe. Love, Mom. Then just love, Mom. Then nothing. Maya stopped replying entirely after month 14. I knew something was shifting, but I couldn't fix it. I was in Moldova when I got the intelligence brief about my family's online activity. Standard protocol, they monitored social media for security risks. Someone had posted on Facebook asking if anyone had heard from me. A cousin. The post had 30 comments. Most were speculation. Some were concerned. A few were cruel. Maybe she got dishonorably discharged. I heard she had a breakdown. Military covers things up all the time. Maya had commented, she's fine. Just doing her thing. It was the flatness of it that hurt. Not anger. Not worry. Just resignation. Year 2 became year 3. I coordinated an extraction in the Balkans, spent 4 months embedded with a NATO task force in the Baltics, learned to operate surveillance systems I couldn't have imagined existed. I received my promotion to major through a classified ceremony attended by 7 people in a secure facility. No family. No celebration. Just a handshake and new rank insignia sewn onto uniforms I'd wear in places I couldn't photograph. The Air Force sent the promotion notification to my mother's address. According to the delivery confirmation, someone signed for it. According to the system, no one acknowledged it. I wanted to call. I wanted to explain. But the rules were absolute. No personal contact. The security requirements weren't negotiable. One compromised communication could unravel operations involving hundreds of people. I'd signed the papers. I'd made the choice. But knowing that didn't make it easier. Year 3 became year 4. The rumors about me, which I tracked through security monitoring, evolved. I wasn't just absent anymore. I was troubled. I was in rehab. I was in prison for something classified. The stories grew more elaborate with each retelling. Dylan, Maya's boyfriend, had apparently become the family's unofficial spokesman on military matters. He explained to anyone who'd listen that classified assignments were often cover stories for disciplinary actions. That the military protected its own. That my family probably didn't know the truth but were too loyal to say so. Maya never corrected him. Not once in the digital record. My mom became quieter online. Her posts about me stopped entirely. When people asked, she changed the subject. I was in the Middle East coordinating intelligence handoffs between allied forces when I realized they'd given up on me. Not on me being alive, the Air Force confirmed that regularly enough. They'd given up on me being who they thought I was. The person they'd created to fill my absence bore no resemblance to who I actually was or what I was actually doing. But I couldn't compete with a ghost I couldn't even acknowledge existed. Year 4 became year 5. The operations intensified. I worked a hostage extraction in North Africa that should have been impossible. I coordinated intelligence that prevented an attack on a civilian target in Western Europe. I did things I'll never be able to talk about with people who'll never know they happened. The work mattered. I knew it mattered. But the cost kept accumulating. Then, one morning in a safe house outside Berlin, my handler told me the assignment was ending. You're being rotated stateside. Full reintegration. You'll have a debrief period, then standard leave before your next posting. I sat there, coffee cooling in my hand, trying to process it. 5 years. It had been 5 years. What about my family? You're cleared to contact them however you choose. The restrictions are lifted. I pulled out the phone they issued me, a new one, not the personal device I'd surrendered years ago, and opened email. My mom's address was still in my memory. I typed carefully, coming home. Can I visit this weekend? The reply came 6 hours later. One word, okay. Not, we've missed you, or thank God, or we were so worried. Just, okay. I should have known then. I should have recognized the distance in that single word. But I was too tired, too relieved to be done, too hopeful that maybe things could just go back to normal. I flew into Philadelphia on a gray Friday afternoon, rented a car, and drove the familiar route to my mom's house. The streets looked the same. The house looked the same. Everything looked exactly like I'd left it, preserved in amber while I'd aged in ways that had nothing to do with years. Maya answered the door. She'd changed older, sharper, with Dylan standing behind her like a shadow. She looked me up and down, her expression somewhere between amusement and contempt. Then she said it, enjoyed prison, loser? I stood on the porch of my childhood home, duffel bag in hand, and stared at my sister. Maya's smirk didn't waver. Dylan crossed his arms behind her, eyebrows raised like he was waiting for a show. Excuse me. I kept my voice level. Prison. Rehab. Whatever you want to call it. She stepped aside, letting me enter. Mom's in the kitchen. She's been worried you'd show up strung out or something. I walked past her, every muscle in my body tensed. The house smelled the same, coffee and that lavender detergent my mom always used. Family photos lined the hallway, a timeline of our lives frozen in frames. I appeared less and less frequently as the years progressed, until I vanished entirely around photo 15. My mom stood at the stove, her back to me. Her shoulders were more rounded than I remembered, her hair grayer. She turned slowly, wooden spoon in hand. Ava. Her voice was quiet. Not warm. Just acknowledging. Hi, Mom. She didn't move to hug me. You look different. It's been 5 years. Yes. She turned back to the stove. Maya said you were in trouble. Some kind of program. The words hit like a physical blow. Maya said what? My sister appeared in the kitchen doorway. Well, what were we supposed to think? You disappeared. No calls. No visits. Just those weird automated emails. Dylan explained how it works. When someone goes dark like that, it's usually because they screwed up something classified. Dylan explained. I set my bag down carefully, keeping my hands steady. Dylan, who's never served a day in his life, explained military protocol to you. He reads about this stuff, Maya said defensively. He knows how the system works. The system. I looked at my mom, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, did the Air Force not send you my promotion notification? I made Major 2 years ago. She stirred the pot on the stove. We got some mail. Maya handles those things. I turned to Maya. Where's the notification? She shrugged. How should I know? We get a lot of mail. And honestly, even if you got promoted, that doesn't mean what? That everything's fine. People get promoted in rehab programs. Or in military prison. It's part of the rehabilitation process. I could feel my heartbeat in my temples, but I kept my breathing even. 5 years of training and emotional control, and I needed every second of it. Is that what you've been telling people? That I'm in military prison. I didn't tell people anything specific, Maya said. But when Aunt Carol asked, and then the neighbors, and then people at the grocery store, what was I supposed to say? You gave us nothing, Ava. Nothing but silence. I gave you what I was allowed to give you. The assignment was classified. Dylan laughed from the hallway. It was a short, bitter sound. Classified. Right. That's what they all say. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on Maya. You believed I was in prison. Or rehab. For 5 years. And you never once thought to reach out through official channels? To contact my command? To verify anything? We tried, my mom said softly, still facing the stove. They wouldn't tell us anything. Just that you were safe and assigned. So you filled in the blanks with the worst possible explanations. What else were we supposed to think? Maya's voice rose. You left. You just left. And you want us to believe it was all some hero mission we're not allowed to know about? That's convenient, isn't it? I picked up my bag. Where should I put this? Your old room, my mom said. It's mostly storage now, but the bed's still there. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. My room was exactly as Mom described, boxes stacked in corners, my old desk covered in Maya's craft supplies, posters peeling from the walls. I sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 5 years. I'd spent 5 years believing that my family knew me well enough to trust me. That even without details, they'd understand I was doing something that mattered. That my character, 17 years of being the responsible one, the dependable one, would speak for itself. Instead, they'd decided I was a criminal. Or an addict. Or a failure too shameful to acknowledge. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Maya appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Look, she said. I know you're upset. But you have to see it from our perspective. Your perspective. Yes, my perspective. Mom's perspective. We're the ones who stayed. We're the ones who had to deal with the questions and the rumors and the judgment. You got to disappear. We had to stay and face everything. I sat up slowly. And what exactly did you have to face, Maya? People thinking our family was messed up. People assuming the worst. I had to listen to Dylan's friends make jokes about military washouts. I had to watch Mom cry because she thought you were dead or worse. Did you tell them the truth? That I was on assignment. What truth? You never told us anything. How were we supposed to defend you when we didn't know what we were defending? You could have defended my character. You could have said, my sister has served honorably for 9 years, and I trust her even when I don't understand the details. Maya laughed, sharp and bitter. Trust you? Ava, you were never here. Even before you left, you were never really here. You were always working, always focused on the Air Force, always putting us second. Don't act like this is some sudden betrayal. You've been choosing the military over us since you were 18. I sent money home every month. I paid for your college applications. I covered Mom's medical bills. Money isn't the same as being present. I was serving my country. You were running away from a life you didn't want. She stepped into the room. You couldn't wait to get out of here, to get away from us. The military was just your excuse. I stood up and Maya took a step back. I kept my voice quiet. If that's what you really think, then there's nothing I can say to change your mind. That's it? That's your defense. I don't need to defend myself to you, Maya. I know what I did and why I did it. If you want to believe the worst, that's your choice. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out. Dinner was excruciating. My mom had made pot roast, one of my favorites from childhood. We sat around the table, me, Mom, Maya, and Dylan eating in near silence. Dylan tried to fill the gaps with stories about his job in tech support, about the apartment he and Maya were planning to rent, about anything except the obvious tension crackling through the room. Finally, he made the mistake of addressing it directly. So, Ava, what have you been up to? Maya mentioned you were overseas. I was assigned to various locations. The work was classified. Right, classified. He cut his meat carefully. My buddy from college joined the army. He was in Afghanistan. Even though a lot of what he did was classified, he could still tell us general stuff. Where he was stationed, what his role was, you know. Different assignments have different restrictions. Sure. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed. It's just, in my experience, when someone can't talk about anything at all, it usually means the story doesn't add up. I set down my fork. Your experience. I read a lot about this stuff. Military accountability, whistleblower protections, how the system protects people even when they've done questionable things. My mom put her hand on my arm. Let's talk about something else. But Dylan wasn't done. I'm just saying, if everything was legitimate, there'd be no reason for total secrecy. The military types I know, they love talking about their service. Respectfully, of course. But they're proud of it. They don't hide it. Maya shifted uncomfortably. Dylan, maybe I'm not trying to start anything, he continued. I'm just making an observation. And honestly, Mrs. Rios, you and Maya deserve the truth. Families deserve transparency. I stood up. Excuse me. I walked to the kitchen, gripped the edge of the counter, and breathed. Behind me, I heard my mom's quiet voice. Dylan, that's enough. I'm just being honest, that's enough. I stared out the kitchen window at the darkening street. A part of me wanted to tell them everything. To describe the operations, the risks, the lives saved. To make them understand that my silence wasn't shame but necessity. But even as I thought it, I knew it wouldn't matter. They'd already decided who I was. I returned to the table, picked up my plate, and carried it to the sink. I think I'll turn in early. Ava, wait. My mom stood. I want you to know it's fine, Mom. I'm just tired. Maya spoke without looking at me. Mom is ashamed of you. She hasn't said it, but I can tell. She tells people you're away on assignment in this vague way that makes it obvious she doesn't believe it herself. The room went silent. My mom's face flushed. Maya, that's not, it's true. Maya finally met my eyes. You want honesty? That's the honest truth. We're ashamed. Embarrassed. Whatever you did, wherever you were, it's made our lives harder. And now you show up expecting everything to just go back to normal, and it can't. It just can't. I nodded slowly. Okay. Yes. Okay. I understand. I went upstairs, closed the door to my old room, and sat in the dark. Through the floor, I could hear muffled voices, my mom and Maya arguing, Dylan trying to mediate. I didn't cry. I'd trained that response out of myself years ago. Instead, I sat and processed the data like I'd process any intelligence brief, assess the situation, identify the variables, determine the best course of action. The situation, irreparable damage. The variables, pride, ignorance, resentment. The course of action, withdrawal. I'd leave in the morning. I'd find a hotel near the base, finish my reintegration debrief, and request immediate reassignment. Maybe overseas again. Maybe just far enough away that visits wouldn't be expected. I'd spent 5 years protecting people who'd spent 5 years assuming the worst about me. That wasn't a relationship. It was a liability. My phone buzzed. A text from my former commanding officer, now Colonel Nathan Hale. How's the homecoming? I typed back, about what you'd expect. His response came quickly. Need an exit strategy? Working on it. Coffee tomorrow. 0900. I'm in town. Roger. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to my family's voices drift up through the floor, discussing me like I was a problem they needed to solve rather than a person they'd missed. For the first time since commissioning, I felt completely alone. I left the house at 0600 hours, before anyone else woke up. I left a note on the kitchen counter, brief and factual, staying at base hotel. We'll be in touch. Then drove the 40 minutes to the nearest Air Force installation. Colonel Nathan Hale met me at a coffee shop off base at precisely 0900 hours. He was in civilian clothes, but you could spot the military bearing from across the parking lot. 46 years old, 06, and one of the few people who knew exactly what I'd been doing for the past 5 years. You look like help, Major. He sat across from me, sliding a black coffee in my direction. Thank you, sir. That bad? I wrapped my hands around the cup. They think I was in prison. Or rehab. My sister's boyfriend spent dinner explaining military accountability to me. Hale winced. I tried to warn you. Reintegration is often harder than the mission itself. You didn't warn me they'd rewrite my entire service record in their heads. No, he admitted. I didn't expect that level of creativity. He sipped his coffee. For what it's worth, what you did mattered. The operation in Bulgaria alone saved hundreds of civilian lives. The intelligence work in the Baltics prevented 3 separate attacks. Your coordination, I know what it accomplished, sir. I was there. And they'll never know. No, they'll never know. I stared into my coffee. But even if they could know, I don't think it would change anything. The problem isn't that they don't understand the missions. It's that they don't respect the service. They never did. Hale nodded slowly. Some families are like that. They tolerate military service, but never value it. The benefits are nice, but the sacrifice seems unnecessary. I sent money home every month for years. Before the assignment, during when I could. I paid for things they needed. And they appreciated the money but resented the absence. Classic pattern. He leaned back. So what's your plan? Request immediate reassignment. Anywhere but here. You're entitled to 30 days leave first. I'll spend it in a hotel. That's going to look great on your psych eval. I met his eyes. With respect, sir, my psych eval is going to show what it needs to show. I'm fit for duty. I'm just done pretending that family obligations go both ways. Fair enough. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then showed me the screen. Joint Task Force in Germany. Intelligence coordination. They need a major with your skill set. Assignment starts in 6 weeks. I'll take it. You haven't asked what it involves. Does it involve anyone questioning my character or assuming I'm a criminal? Not likely. Then I'll take it. He put his phone away. Ava, I'm going to say something now as someone who's been where you are. What happened with your family isn't your fault, but you can't let it poison every relationship you have. Not everyone will fail you the way they did. Understood, sir. Do you though? Because I've seen this before. Operators come back from deep assignments, find out their families have moved on or written them off, and they start treating every connection as temporary. They isolate. They become ghosts even when they're home. I didn't respond. He sighed. Just think about it. In the meantime, take a few days. Process this. Meet with the counselor on base if you need to. I'm fine, sir. You're not. But you will be. Dismissed, Major. I spent the afternoon walking around the base. It was familiar territory, the same kind of structures, the same rhythms as every installation I'd been stationed at. People saluted as I passed. I returned the gestures automatically, taking comfort in the predictability of it. My phone rang around 1500 hours. My mom. I answered. Hello. Ava, where are you? On base. You left. I'm staying at the base hotel. I left a note. There was a long pause. Maya feels terrible about last night. Does she? She does. We just don't understand what happened. You have to give us that. 5 years, Ava. 5 years of nothing. 5 years of classified service, Mom. There's a difference. But how are we supposed to know that? How are we supposed to believe it when you can't tell us anything? I stopped walking, stood in the middle of an empty parade ground. You're supposed to know because you know me. Because I've never given you reason to think I'd be dishonorably discharged or arrested or in rehab. Because my entire adult life has been defined by service and responsibility. That should have been enough. It's not that simple. It really is, though. Either you trust my character or you don't. And you've made it clear you don't. That's not fair. Mom, Maya's boyfriend spent dinner lecturing me about military accountability. Maya told me you're ashamed of me. No one acknowledged my promotion to major. You didn't defend me when people spread rumors. At what point does fairness enter into this? Her voice cracked. We were scared, Ava. We didn't know if you were alive or dead or hurt. The Air Force wouldn't tell us anything. What were we supposed to think? That your daughter was doing her job. That's all. Just that. Come home. Please. Let's talk about this properly. I'll come by to get my things. But I'm not staying there. Ava, I have to go, Mom. I'll call you later. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I sat in the base hotel room and made a list. It was something my training officer had taught me during the selection process. When emotion threatens to overwhelm analysis, create structure. Write it down. Make it objective. I wrote facts about the past 5 years. Then I listed them. I was selected for a classified assignment requiring total communication blackout. I completed the assignment successfully, earning commendations I cannot publicly acknowledge. I was promoted ahead of schedule. I maintained financial support to my family when possible. I broke no rules, violated no codes of conduct, and served honorably. Then I wrote facts about my family's response. The list came faster. They assumed criminal or shameful activity rather than classified service. They spread rumors or allowed rumors to spread unchallenged. They failed to acknowledge my promotion. They expressed shame and embarrassment about my service. They demanded explanations I'm not authorized to give. I stared at both lists for a long time. The evidence was clear. The emotional interpretation, however, was more complex. Were they wrong to be scared? No. Were they wrong to be confused? Not entirely. But were they wrong to assume the worst, to believe gossip over my history, to treat my return as an inconvenience rather than a relief? Yes. That was the piece I couldn't reconcile. Even accounting for fear and confusion, there was a baseline of disrespect that predated my absence. Maya had said it herself, I'd been choosing the military over them since I was 18. But that wasn't the whole truth. I'd been choosing responsibility over comfort, structure over chaos, service over self. And they'd interpreted every choice as rejection. Maybe it was. Maybe some part of me had been running away from a family that never quite fit. But even if that was true, it didn't justify what they'd become in my absence. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya, can we talk? I typed back, about what? About yesterday. About everything. Please. I closed my eyes, thought about Colonel Hale's warning about becoming a ghost. Then I replied, tomorrow. 1 hour. Coffee shop on Maple Street. 1100 hours. Okay, thank you. I set the phone down and returned to my lists, adding one more section, facts about moving forward. The list was short. I cannot change how they see me. I cannot make them respect what they don't understand. I can control my response. I can set boundaries. I can choose what kind of relationship, if any, to maintain. I underlined the last point twice, then folded the paper and put it in my pocket. Structure. Analysis. Control. These were the tools I had. These were the tools that had kept me alive and effective for 5 years in situations most people couldn't imagine. I'd use them now. Maya was already at the coffee shop when I arrived at 1100 hours. She sat at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug, eyes red. I ordered black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and sat across from her. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. I nodded. I need to say something, and I need you to just listen. Okay. She took a breath. I was jealous. I've been jealous since we were kids. You were always better at everything, school, responsibility, making mom proud. When you joined the Air Force, it felt like you were just adding another achievement I could never match. And when you left on that assignment, part of me was relieved. Finally, you weren't here being perfect while I struggled with community college and retail jobs. I kept my expression neutral. When you didn't call, when the emails stopped being regular, Dylan started saying maybe you'd screwed up. Maybe you weren't as perfect as everyone thought. And I wanted to believe him. Because it was easier than admitting I resented you for succeeding. When people asked where you were, I didn't defend you because some part of me wanted them to think less of you. Wanted them to see the way I felt, like maybe you weren't all that great after all. She wiped her eyes. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't excuse what I said or what I let Dylan say. You're my sister. I should have defended you. I should have trusted you. And I didn't. I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air between us. I sipped my coffee, buying time to formulate a response that was honest, but not cruel. I appreciate you saying that, I said finally. But Maya, the jealousy, I can understand that. Family dynamics are complicated. What I can't understand is the assumption that I'd be dishonorably discharged or in prison. That wasn't jealousy. That was assuming the worst possible version of me, despite a decade of evidence to the contrary. I know. Do you? Because that's not just about you feeling inadequate. That's about you actively choosing to believe I'd failed. There's a difference. She nodded, tears falling freely now. You're right. And I don't know how to fix it. Neither do I. Does that mean you won't forgive me? I considered the question carefully. It means I don't know what forgiveness looks like here. You apologized, and I believe you mean it. But trust isn't rebuilt with an apology. It's rebuilt with time and changed behavior. And, honestly, I don't know if I have it in me right now to wait and see. So that's it? We're done. I didn't say that. I said I don't know. I need time to process this, and I need space. I'm taking an assignment in Germany. I leave in 6 weeks. Of course you are. Maya, no, I get it. It's what you do. Things get hard, you leave. I felt anger flare but kept my voice level. Things got hard 5 years ago, and I didn't have the luxury of leaving. I did my job. The fact that you can't differentiate between running away and serving is part of the problem. She looked down at her mug. I don't know how to see it the way you do. Then maybe we're at an impasse. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Maya spoke again. Mom wants you to come to dinner tonight. Just the 3 of us. No Dylan. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. Just one dinner. Let us try. I wanted to say no. Every instinct I'd honed over 5 years of operating in hostile environments told me to maintain distance, to protect myself. But Colonel Hale's words echoed, you can't let it poison every relationship you have. One dinner, I agreed. But I'm setting ground rules. No questions about the assignment I can't answer. No accusations. No dramatics. If those boundaries aren't respected, I leave. Understood. Understood. And Maya? This is the last chance. If tonight goes badly, I'm done trying. She met my eyes. I understand. I arrived at my mom's house at 1800 hours. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard I'd played in as a child. My mom answered the door, and this time she hugged me. It was brief and awkward, but it was something. Dinner was quieter than the night before. My mom had made lasagna, garlic bread, salad. We ate and made small talk, safe topics like the weather, neighborhood news, a book my mom was reading. Maya asked about my plans for Germany, and I gave the broad strokes I was allowed to share. Intelligence coordination, working with allied forces, likely a 2-year assignment. Will you be able to call? My mom asked. Yes. This is a standard posting. Regular communication. She nodded, relief visible on her face. That's good. I'd like that. After dinner, we moved to the living room. My mom made tea. Maya sat on the floor like she used to when she was younger, back against the couch. I took the armchair, maintaining a comfortable distance. I want to explain something, my mom said carefully. Not to excuse what happened, but to help you understand. When your father left, you were 7 and Maya was 3. You probably don't remember much of that time. I remember enough. After he left, I had to figure out how to do everything alone. I was terrified all the time. Terrified I'd lose the house, lose my job, lose you girls. And I coped by controlling what I could. By trying to predict the worst-case scenario so I'd never be blindsided again. She set down her tea. When you joined the military, I was proud. But I was also scared. Scared you'd be deployed somewhere dangerous, scared you'd be hurt, scared I'd lose you the way I lost your father, not to death, but to a life I couldn't reach. When you took that assignment and stopped calling, every fear I'd ever had came flooding back. And instead of trusting you, I assumed the worst, because that's what I'd trained myself to do for 25 years. I listened without interrupting. Maya fed into that because she was scared too. And Dylan, well, Dylan has his own issues with authority and institutions. But the core of it was fear, Ava. Not malice. Not disrespect. Just fear. Mom, I understand that you were scared. But fear doesn't justify spreading rumors or refusing to defend me. You could have been scared and still said, I don't know where she is or what she's doing, but I know my daughter and I trust her. You could have done both. She nodded slowly. You're right. I could have. I should have. Maya spoke up from the floor. I talked to Dylan today. Told him he needs to apologize to you. He said he would. I don't need his apology. I need him to stop pretending he understands military service when he's never worn a uniform. I'll make sure he knows that. We sat in silence for a while. Then my mom asked, what do we do now? I don't know, I admitted. I want to say we move forward and rebuild, but I don't know if I can. Not right now. The trust is broken, and rebuilding it requires consistent effort over time. I'll be in Germany. You'll be here. The distance makes it hard. But not impossible, my mom asked hopefully. Not impossible. Just hard. Then we'll do hard, Maya said firmly. If you're willing to try, so are we. I looked at both of them, my mother, worn and worried, my sister, young and earnest. 5 years ago, I'd left believing they understood who I was. I'd returned to find they'd built an entirely different person in my absence. But maybe, with intention and time, we could find something in between. I'm willing to try, I said finally. But it's going to be different. I'm different. And I need you to accept that. We will, my mom promised. We'll try. It wasn't resolution. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something to build from. I stayed until 2100 hours, then drove back to the base hotel. The conversation had been productive, but I felt drained. I called Colonel Hale. How'd it go? He asked. Better than expected. Still not great. That's how healing works. Small improvements over long periods. I suppose. Get some rest, Major. You've earned it. But rest didn't come easily. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and replayed the past 5 years in my mind. The missions. The risks. The lives saved. The sacrifices made. Then I replayed the past 2 days. The accusations. The assumptions. The slow, painful work of rebuilding trust. Both were hard. Both required skills I'd spent years developing. But one had felt meaningful, necessary. The other just felt exhausting. I wondered if that difference would ever disappear. 6 days later, I received orders to report to the Pentagon for a ceremony. The notification was brief. Dress uniform required. Attendance mandatory. Details to follow. I called Colonel Hale. What's this about? Can't say over the phone. Just show up. I flew to D.C., checked into a hotel near the Pentagon, and reported at the designated time. A lieutenant met me in the lobby and escorted me through security, down several corridors, and into a conference room where a handful of senior officers sat waiting. I recognized a few faces, people who'd been part of the oversight structure for my assignment, though I'd never met them in person. A 2-star general stood. Major Rios. Thank you for coming. Sir, we're not staying long. There's a brief ceremony, then we'll send you on your way. This is unconventional. But you're being awarded the Medal of Honor for actions taken during Operation Ice Lantern, the umbrella designation for your 5-year assignment. I blinked. Sir, the award is being processed through classified channels. Public acknowledgement is limited. However, we felt it was important that you receive proper recognition and that your family understands the nature of your service. With your permission, we'd like to conduct a brief presentation at your family home. My family home. Yes. Tomorrow evening, if that works for you. We'll keep it simple, full dress uniform, official vehicle, formal presentation. It sends a message. I thought about Maya's smirk. Dylan's condescension. My mother's careful distance. Then I thought about Colonel Hale's warning about letting bitterness poison everything. Permission granted, sir. The next evening, I returned to my mother's house. I'd called ahead, told them I needed to stop by, but I hadn't explained why. When I arrived at 17:30 hours, Maya and my mom were in the living room. Dylan was there too, standing awkwardly by the window. Ava, my mom said, surprised. You said you'd come by, but I didn't think you meant tonight. We were just about to have dinner. That's fine. This won't take long. What won't take long? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the house. A black SUV pulled into the driveway, followed by a second vehicle. My mom stood up confused. Maya moved to the window. Ava, what's going on? Just wait. The front door was open, and through it, we watched as uniformed personnel exited the vehicles. Then a figure in full dress uniform stepped out, Major General Marcus Adler, wearing more medals and decorations than I could count. He walked toward the house with precise, measured steps. Maya's face went pale. "Is that?" "A general," Dylan whispered. "That's a general." My mom looked at me, questions in her eyes. I kept my expression neutral. General Adler reached the door. I stepped forward, came to attention, and saluted. He returned the salute, then entered the living room. His presence filled the space immediately, authority, rank, and purpose condensed into one person. "Mrs. Rios, Ms. Rios." He nodded to my mother and sister. "I apologize for the intrusion. I'm Major General Marcus Adler, United States Air Force. I'm here on official business." My mom couldn't speak. Maya just stared. The general turned to me. "Major Ava Rios. On behalf of the United States Air Force and by authority vested in me by the President of the United States, I am here to recognize your exceptional service during Operation Ice Lantern. Your actions over a 5-year period demonstrated extraordinary heroism, intelligence expertise, and dedication to mission success. You conducted operations in multiple theaters, coordinated intelligence that prevented significant loss of civilian life, and maintained the highest standards of conduct under conditions that would have broken most operators." He opened a wooden case he'd been carrying and removed a medal. The Medal of Honor, gleaming under the living room lights. "Major Rios, it is my honor to present you with the Medal of Honor for service above and beyond the call of duty. Your country thanks you." He placed the medal around my neck, then stepped back and saluted. I returned the salute, crisp and professional. Behind me, I heard a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Maya had dropped into a chair, hand over her mouth. Dylan stood frozen, all color drained from his face. My mom's eyes were wide, uncomprehending. The general turned to them. "Your daughter served with distinction in some of the most dangerous and critical operations this nation has conducted in the past decade. The details remain classified, but I want you to understand that her service was not only honorable but exemplary. The Air Force is privileged to have her." He turned back to me. "Congratulations, Major. You've earned this." "Thank you, sir." He exited as formally as he'd entered. The SUVs pulled away moments later, leaving only silence in their wake. I stood in the living room, medal heavy around my neck, and watched my family process what had just happened. Maya stared at me like she'd never seen me before. Dylan had retreated to the corner, trying to make himself invisible. My mom sat down slowly, hands trembling. "Ava," she whispered. I can't. It's classified," I said simply. "That's all I can tell you." But the general was clear. I served honorably. 5 years. That's what I was doing. That's where I was. Maya's voice cracked. "The Medal of Honor." "Yes. All this time we thought, I know what you thought." Dylan cleared his throat. "I need to apologize. I said things I had no right to say. I made assumptions. I'm sorry." I looked at him. Apology noted. My mom stood up, walked over, and wrapped her arms around me. This time, the hug lasted. "I'm sorry. God, Ava, I'm so sorry. We should have trusted you. We should have known." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "You should have." Maya approached slowly. "I don't even know what to say. I feel like the worst person in the world right now." "You're not. But you made choices that hurt me. We all have to live with that. Can you forgive us?" I looked at the medal around my neck, then at my family's faces, shame, remorse, confusion. Part of me wanted to let them suffer with it, to sit in the discomfort they'd created. But another part, the part that had spent 5 years fighting to protect people who'd never know it, recognized that forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about me choosing not to carry the weight of their mistakes forward. "I can try," I said. "But it's going to take time." Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes." Then we start small. Honest communication. No assumptions. No rumors. If you don't understand something, you ask me directly, and if I can answer, I will. If I can't, you trust that I have a good reason. Can you do that? "Yes," she said immediately. "Mom?" My mom nodded. "Yes, absolutely." I removed the medal carefully and placed it back in its case. "This stays private. I don't want it displayed or mentioned to anyone outside this room." The recognition was for you, so you'd understand. But the work itself remains classified. We understand, my mom said. Dylan spoke up hesitantly. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I was out of line, and I'll make sure I never speak about military service like that again. I nodded. Thank you. The rest of the evening passed in a kind of careful peace. We ate dinner together, and the conversation stayed light. No one asked about the assignment. No one pressed for details. They'd gotten their answer in the form of a general and a medal, and it had rewritten every assumption they'd made. I left around 2200 hours, promising to come back before I left for Germany. Maya walked me to the car. I know I keep saying it, but I really am sorry, Ava. I let jealousy turn me into someone I hate. Then be better, I said simply. That's all you can do now. Will you call from Germany? Or write? I'll call. Regularly. And I'll expect you to answer. She smiled, just a little. I will. I promise. I drove back to the base hotel, exhausted but lighter somehow. The confrontation I'd expected, the dramatic reckoning, had happened. But it hadn't brought the satisfaction I'd imagined. Instead, it had just brought clarity. My family had failed me, but I'd survived that failure. And now, with boundaries set and expectations clear, maybe we could build something better. Or maybe not. But at least now, the terms were mine to dictate. I called Colonel Hale before bed. The ceremony happened. How'd it go? My sister nearly choked on air. My mom cried. My sister's boyfriend looked like he wanted to disappear. Good. They needed to see it. Did they, though? Would it have mattered if I'd never gotten the medal? You're asking if their respect should have been contingent on external validation. Yes. And the answer is no, it shouldn't have been. But sometimes people need proof they can see and touch. The medal gave them that. Now you get to decide what you do with their newfound understanding. I'm going to try to rebuild. Slowly. That's the right call. But Ava? Yes, sir. Don't forget what you learned these past 2 weeks. Some relationships require maintenance. Some require distance. And some require endings. It's okay to choose which is which. Understood, sir. I hung up and lay in the darkness, medal case on the nightstand, and thought about the general's words, "Your country thanks you." My country did thank me. But my family had needed a general to tell them to do the same. That imbalance would always be there, a fundamental gap between who I was and who they'd needed me to be. But maybe, with effort and time, we could bridge it. Or maybe I'd learn to be okay with the gap. Either way, I wasn't the one who needed to prove anything anymore. The first few weeks after the ceremony passed in a strange limbo. I stayed at the base hotel, processed my pre-deployment paperwork for Germany, and had carefully scheduled dinners with my mom and Maya. The conversations were civil, sometimes warm, but always slightly formal, like we were all performing the roles of family rather than actually being one. Maya tried hard. She texted every few days with updates about her life, a new job opportunity, progress on the apartment hunt with Dylan, a recipe she'd tried. I responded to each message, keeping my replies brief but friendly. My mom called once a week, asking safe questions about my preparations and sharing neighborhood gossip I had no context for but pretended to care about. Dylan kept his distance, which I appreciated. When he did appear at family dinners, he was polite to the point of stiffness, avoiding eye contact and excusing himself early. Maya apologized for him constantly. He's embarrassed, she explained one evening after he'd left. He knows he screwed up. He did, I agreed. But he's your boyfriend, not my responsibility. As long as he's respectful going forward, we're fine. Are we fine? Maya asked suddenly. I mean, you and me. Are we actually fine, or are you just going through the motions? I set down my water glass. I'm here, aren't I? That's not the same thing. No, it's not. I thought about how to phrase it honestly. Maya, I don't know if we'll ever be close again. 5 years is a long time, and what happened when I came back changed something fundamental. But I'm willing to try to find some version of a relationship that works. That's the best I can offer right now. She nodded, eyes glistening. That's fair. And it's more than I deserve. Maybe, but it's what I'm choosing to give. 3 weeks before my Germany deployment, I received a call from Colonel Hale. Can you come to the office tomorrow? There's someone who wants to meet you. Who? You'll see. 1,000 hours. I arrived at the Air Force Administrative Building precisely on time. Hale met me in the lobby and led me to a conference room where a woman in civilian clothes sat waiting. She was maybe 40, with dark hair and sharp eyes that assessed me immediately. Major Rios, this is Dr. Sarah Chen. She's a psychologist who works with operators transitioning out of classified assignments. I shook her hand. Ma'am, please sit. This isn't an evaluation, just a conversation. Her voice was calm, professional. Colonel Hale mentioned you've had some difficulty with reintegration. That's one way to put it. I've worked with dozens of people in your situation. The pattern is fairly consistent. You disappear for years, your family fills the void with assumptions, you return to find they've constructed an entirely different narrative about your absence. That's exactly what happened. And now you're trying to reconcile the person you actually were with the person they decided you were. It's exhausting. I felt some of the tension in my shoulders release. Yes, it is. The question you're probably asking yourself is whether it's worth the effort. Whether these relationships can be repaired or if you should just let them go. Every day, I admitted. Dr. Chin leaned forward. Here's what I tell everyone in your position. You don't owe anyone a relationship just because you're related by blood. Family is supposed to be about mutual respect, support, and trust. If those elements aren't present, it's not really family. It's just people you happen to share DNA with. That sounds harsh. It's realistic. Some families can rebuild after this kind of fracture. Some can't. What matters is that you make the choice that protects your well-being, not the choice that fulfills some obligation imposed by society or guilt. I thought about that. My sister's been trying. My mom too. They apologized. They're making an effort. Do you believe the effort is genuine? I think they're scared of losing me completely. I don't know if that's the same as genuine understanding. That's perceptive. Fear-based change rarely lasts. Real change requires people to fundamentally shift how they see you and themselves. Can they do that? I don't know. Then give yourself permission not to know. Go to Germany. Live your life. Maintain contact at whatever level feels comfortable, but don't force anything. If the relationship is meant to survive, it will prove itself over time. If it's not, you'll have your answer. The conversation lasted an hour. When I left, I felt clearer than I had in weeks. Dr. Chin was right. I'd been operating under the assumption that I had to fix what my family had broken. But I didn't. I could simply step back and let them do the work of proving they'd changed. I shared this revelation with Maya the next time we had coffee. I'm going to Germany in 2 weeks. While I'm there, I want you to know that I'm not going to chase this relationship. I'll respond when you reach out, but I need you to be the one who maintains contact. Can you do that? She looked hurt. You don't trust me to try. I don't trust you to sustain effort without immediate reinforcement. You've spent your life comparing yourself to me, resenting me, and then, when I was gone, rewriting me into someone you could feel superior to. That's not going to change just because a general showed up with a medal. That's not fair, Maya. I'm not interested in fair right now. I'm interested in protecting myself. If you want a relationship with me, you need to prove over time that you can respect me even when I'm not physically present. That means no gossip, no assumptions, no letting Dylan or anyone else speak badly about my service. It means actively defending me when I'm not there to defend myself. Can you do that? She was quiet for a long moment. I can try. Then try. And we'll see where we are in 6 months. The conversation with my mom was similar but gentler. She cried, promised to do better, asked how often I'd call. I told her once a week, maybe more if schedules allowed. She asked if she could visit Germany, and I told her honestly that I needed space first, maybe in a year if things improved. I love you, Ava, she said as I was leaving. I know I didn't show it well these past 5 years, but I do. I know, Mom. But love without respect isn't enough. Work on the respect, and we'll figure out the rest. My final week stateside passed quickly. I sold what little I'd accumulated during my brief time back, arranged for storage of the few items I wanted to keep, and finalized my travel orders. Colonel Hale took me to dinner 2 nights before I left. You handled this better than most, he said over steaks. A lot of people in your position either completely cut off their families or let themselves get sucked back into toxic dynamics. You found a middle path. I don't know if it's the right path. There is no right path. There's just the path you can live with. He cut his steak methodically. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call with the boundaries. Give them a chance to prove themselves, but don't sacrifice your peace for people who haven't earned it. That's basically what Dr. Chen said. She's smart. Listen to her. He paused. Germany's going to be good for you. The work is challenging but not overwhelming. You'll have time to decompress, to figure out who you are outside of crisis mode. I'm not sure I know who that is anymore. Then Germany's definitely the right place. Give yourself permission to find out. The night before my flight, I drove to my mom's house one last time. She'd made dinner, chicken parmesan, garlic bread, salad. Maya was there, and for once, Dylan wasn't. We ate and talked about small things, the weather in Germany, what I'd need to pack, whether I'd have time for sightseeing. After dinner, Maya handed me a small box. I made you something. Inside was a bracelet woven from leather and metal, simple, elegant, something I could actually wear. Thank you. It's not much, but I wanted you to have something that reminded you or thinking about you. I appreciate it. My mom handed me an envelope. It's a letter. Don't read it until you're on the plane. I wanted to say some things I'm not good at saying out loud. I hugged them both before I left. Maya held on longer than usual, whispering, I'll prove it to you. I promise I'll prove I can be better. I hope so, I replied honestly. The flight to Germany was long and uneventful. I read my mom's letter somewhere over the Atlantic. It was 4 pages, handwritten, full of apologies and explanations and promises. She wrote about her fears, her failures as a mother, her desperate hope that we could rebuild what had been broken. The last paragraph made me cry despite my best efforts. You've always been the strongest person I know, Ava. Even when you were little, you had this core of steel that nothing could bend. I'm sorry I mistook that strength for not needing me. I'm sorry I didn't defend you when you couldn't defend yourself. I'm sorry I let fear make me weak when you needed me to be strong. I don't know if I can fix this, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying. You're my daughter, and I'm proud of you. I should have said that more. I should have shown it better. I love you. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Then I pulled out my phone and typed a text to my mom. I read your letter. Thank you for being honest. Let's talk this week. Her reply came quickly despite the time difference. I'll call Friday your time. I love you. I looked out the window at the ocean below, medal in my carry-on, letter in my pocket, bracelet on my wrist. The past 5 years had taken more from me than I'd expected, not just time, but the naive belief that blood meant loyalty. But they'd also given me clarity. I knew now what I was worth. I knew what I'd accomplished. And I knew that I didn't need anyone's validation to understand my own value. If my family could learn that too, we'd find our way back to each other. If they couldn't, I'd be okay anyway. The plane descended toward Frankfurt as dawn broke over Europe. A new assignment. A new start. A new chance to be exactly who I was without apology or explanation. I was ready. Germany exceeded expectations. The assignment was demanding but manageable. Intelligence coordination with NATO allies, threat assessment, strategic planning. I worked alongside officers from 6 different countries, which forced me to adapt my communication style and broaden my tactical thinking. The challenge was refreshing after the intensity of the previous 5 years. I lived in a small apartment off base in a quiet neighborhood where no one knew my rank or cared about my service record. I could walk to bakeries where the owners greeted me by name, sit in cafes reading books that had nothing to do with military strategy, and exist as just Ava for a few hours at a time. I called my mom every Friday as promised. The conversation started awkward, but gradually found a rhythm. She told me about her week, asked about mine within the bounds of what I could share, and didn't push for more than I offered. Maya texted more frequently, pictures of the apartment she and Dylan had finally rented, updates about her new job at a marketing firm, random observations about her day that reminded me of the sister I'd known before jealousy had poisoned everything. I responded to each message. Not immediately, but consistently. I let them see that I was present, available, but not desperate for their approval. 2 months into my Germany assignment, Maya video called me on a Tuesday evening. She looked nervous. Hey, is this a bad time? No, I just got home from work. What's up? She took a breath. Dylan and I broke up. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. It was the right call. He was always talking about integrity and honesty, but he never actually lived it. After what happened with you, I started noticing how much he judged everyone while excusing his own behavior. It got exhausting. That must have been hard to recognize. It was. But you know what was harder? Realizing I'd become the same way. I was so busy resenting you for succeeding that I never actually worked on myself. I just made excuses and blamed you for making me feel inadequate. I didn't say anything, letting her continue. I started therapy, she said quietly. Dr. Chin, the one you saw, she takes video sessions. I've been talking to her about the jealousy, about how I treated you. It's been really hard, but I think it's helping. That's good, Maya. Really good. I wanted you to know. Because you were right, the apology wasn't enough. I need to actually change, not just say I will. She paused. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for things to go back to normal. I just wanted you to know I'm doing the work. I appreciate you telling me. We talked for another hour about other things, her job, her therapy, a trip she was planning to visit a friend in California. When we hung up, I felt something shift. Not trust, not yet, but hope that maybe trust could rebuild. 3 months into the assignment, my mom asked if she could visit for a weekend. I hesitated, then agreed with conditions. She'd stay in a hotel, we'd have structured time together, but also space, and she'd respect my boundaries if I needed to step back. She arrived on a Friday afternoon. I met her at the airport, and when I saw her, something in my chest loosened. She looked older, but healthier than she had during my brief time home. She hugged me carefully, like she was afraid I'd pull away. Thank you for letting me come, she said. Of course. I showed her around the city, took her to my favorite cafe, introduced her to the bakery owner who'd adopted me as a regular. We talked about surface things mostly, but there were moments of deeper honesty. I read some books, she told me over dinner Saturday night. About military families, about reintegration, about how to support someone in your line of work. I should have read them years ago. You didn't know you needed to. I should have tried to know. That's the part one keep coming back to. I just assumed your service was like a regular job, something you clocked in and out of. I didn't understand the sacrifice. Most people don't. But I'm not most people. I'm your mother. I should have tried harder to understand. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, "Are you happy here?" I considered the question. I am. The work is good. The city is beautiful. I have space to figure out who I am outside of crisis mode. Do you think you'll stay here long? 2 years is the current plan. After that, who knows? Will you come home? Eventually. I don't know if Pennsylvania is home anymore, Mom. It hasn't felt like home for a long time. She nodded, eyes sad but understanding. I get that. I wish I didn't, but I do. The rest of the weekend was good. Not perfect, not magical, but good. When I dropped her at the airport Sunday evening, she hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Ava. I know I didn't say it enough before, but I'm saying it now. You're extraordinary. Thank you, Mom. And I'll keep trying. With the calls, with understanding, with everything. I promise. I know you will. 6 months into my Germany assignment, Colonel Hale emailed to check in. I replied with a detailed update. The work was challenging, my German was improving, my mental health was stable. I mentioned the progress with my family cautiously, noting that boundaries were holding and relationships were slowly improving. His response was brief, "Proud of you, Major. You've earned every bit of peace you're building." I printed the email and kept it in my desk drawer, a reminder that some people had always seen me clearly. 1 year into the assignment, Maya visited. She came alone, stayed for 5 days, and we fell into an easier rhythm than I'd expected. She'd continued therapy, gotten promoted at her job, and started dating someone new, a teacher who seemed steady and kind from the stories she told. I'm different now, she said one evening as we walked along the river. I mean, I'm still working on it, but I'm not the person I was when you came home last year. I can see that. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Fully? I thought about it carefully. I think I've already forgiven you for most of it. What I'm still working on is trusting that the changes are permanent. That's fair. But Maya, the fact that you're still trying, that you're doing the work even when I'm thousands of miles away, that matters. It matters a lot. She smiled, just a little. Good. Because I'm not giving up. The medal stayed in a drawer in my apartment, along with my mom's letter and a handful of other mementos from a life that felt both distant and immediate. I didn't display it, Didn't show it to anyone. Didn't use it as proof of anything. It was simply there, a reminder that some sacrifices are only understood in hindsight, and some battles are won so quietly that only a few people ever know they happened. But I knew. And increasingly, the people who mattered knew too. 2 years after arriving in Germany, I received orders for my next assignment, instructor position at the Air Force Academy in Colorado. Teaching, mentoring, shaping the next generation of officers. It felt right, a chance to give back, to share what I'd learned, to help others avoid some of the pitfalls I'd stumbled into. I called my mom to tell her. She was thrilled. Colorado. That's so much closer than Germany. It is. Can I visit? Of course. Once I'm settled. Maya was equally excited when I told her. Does this mean you'll be stateside for a while? At least a few years. Good. We still have a lot of sister time to make up for. The statement would have irritated me 2 years ago, presumptuous, demanding. But now, it just sounded like hope. And I could work with hope. I left Germany on a clear spring morning, my apartment packed into boxes that would follow me across the Atlantic. I'd made friends here, built a life here, found pieces of myself I'd lost during 5 years of classified operations. Germany had been a gift, space to heal, permission to be human, time to rebuild. The flight to Colorado was shorter than the flight to Germany had been. I watched the Rocky Mountains come into view and felt something I hadn't felt in years, anticipation without anxiety, excitement without dread. I was 36 years old, a major with 13 years of service, a Medal of Honor recipient whose story would remain mostly classified, and a woman who'd learned that family could be rebuilt if both sides were willing to do the work. My phone buzzed as we descended. A text from Maya, safe travels. Can't wait to visit your new place. And from my mom, proud of you always. Call when you land. I replied to both, will do. Love you. And I meant it. Colorado Springs welcomed me with sunshine and altitude that left me breathless for the first few weeks. The academy was everything I'd hoped, structured but innovative, traditional but forward-thinking. I taught courses in strategic intelligence and military ethics, mentored cadets who reminded me of my younger self, and slowly built a reputation as a tough but fair instructor. My family kept their promises. My mom visited twice in the first year, staying in a hotel nearby and spending weekends exploring the area with me. Maya came for Christmas, bringing her boyfriend, who turned out to be exactly as kind and steady as she'd described. We all had dinner together, and for the first time in years, it felt like family rather than performance. There were still hard moments. Sometimes Maya would make a comment that revealed lingering jealousy or misunderstanding. Sometimes my mom would ask questions I couldn't answer about the 5 years, and I'd see the frustration in her eyes. But we'd established patterns for handling those moments: honesty, boundaries, patience. We didn't pretend everything was perfect. We just kept trying. One evening, about 18 months into my academy assignment, I received an email from Colonel Hale. He'd been promoted to Brigadier General and was writing to let me know he'd recommended me for Lieutenant Colonel. The promotion board would convene in 6 months. You've earned this a dozen times over, he wrote. But more importantly, you've built a life that honors the service without being consumed by it. That's rarer than you think. I printed the email, added it to the drawer with the medal and the letter and the bracelet. Evidence of a life I'd fought to build, protect, and maintain. The promotion came through as expected. At 38, I pinned on Lieutenant Colonel rank in a ceremony attended by cadets, fellow instructors, and, for the first time, my mother and sister. They sat in the front row, watching as I took the oath and received the insignia. Afterward, Maya hugged me tightly. I'm so proud of you. I know I should have said this years ago, but I'm saying it now. Thank you. My mom held both my hands. Your father would be proud. I know that doesn't mean much, but I think about it sometimes. He'd be proud. It was the first time she'd mentioned him in years. I squeezed her hands. Thank you, Mom. That evening, we had dinner at a restaurant overlooking the mountains. The conversation flowed easily, stories from my teaching, updates on Maya's work, plans for my mom's retirement. At one point, Maya raised her glass. To Ava. For never giving up, even when we gave you every reason to. I clinked my glass against hers. To family. For figuring out how to be one. We drank, and I looked around the table at faces that had once been sources of pain but were becoming sources of peace. It wasn't perfect. It would never be what it could have been if they'd trusted me from the start. But it was real, and it was ours, and it was enough. Later that night, alone in my house, I opened the drawer and took out the medal. I held it for a long time, feeling the weight of it, remembering the general's words, "Your country thanks you." My country did thank me. And eventually, slowly, my family learned to thank me too. But the real victory wasn't the medal or the rank or even the reconciliation. The real victory was learning that I didn't need their thanks to know my worth. I'd survived 5 years of classified operations and 2 years of family reconstruction by holding on to one truth. My value wasn't determined by other people's ability to see it. I'd become the person I needed to be. And in the process, I'd given my family the space to become better versions of themselves. That was enough. I put the medal back in the drawer, closed it gently, and walked to the window. Colorado Springs spread out below, lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, cadets were studying for exams, preparing for careers that would take them places they couldn't yet imagine. I'd teach them what I could: tactics, strategy, ethics. But mostly, I'd teach them what no manual could convey: how to stay true to themselves when everything else tried to reshape them. Because that's what service really meant. Not just duty to country, but duty to the person you promised yourself you'd become. I'd kept that promise. Despite everything, I'd kept it. And I'd keep teaching others to do the same. And that's how 5 years of silence turned into the moment my entire family finally saw who I really was. Not a screw-up. Not a rumor. A major who did her job and came home with the truth sealed behind classified walls. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been written off by the people who should have known you best? Did you ever have to prove your worth in a way they didn't expect or couldn't handle? And if you were in my place, would you let them back in or walk away for good? Drop your story in the comments. If this hit home, even a little, tap like, hit subscribe, and stick around. There are more real stories coming about boundaries, respect, and the moment everything changes.